Jonathan Goldstein is one of our experts on Israel, but he's actually tied up in the Knesset in Israel right now with the Druze party. So we have something better. We have his father, and he is running for Congress in Connecticut. And I'm going to bring him on now. So here we go. Michael, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
How you doing, Todd? It's good to speak to you.
It's good to see you. This whole show has been on Iran. Do you have any insight from your son over in country there as to how the Israeli people are dealing with this as we
he hasn't really shared anything with me about it, but once again, people don't really know what's going to happen next in that whole region. I mean, certainly Iran is a danger, and certainly a nuclear Iran is a disaster to the world, and so something has to be done, and the reality is negotiations with Iran is, I think, very problematic, and I don't find them to be terribly trustworthy. So I think that's the understatement.
Well, let's talk about Connecticut. CT-4. You're running for Congress. First of all, why are you running for Congress? You ran before, and what is your agenda in defeating Jim Himes?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think that Jim Himes is a total disaster for the people of Connecticut and also for the people of the United States. I mean, he is your classic woke progressive liberal. As a college student, he spent 2 months with the Sandinistas, which is the Marxist regime which oppressed the people of Nicaragua. He's voted against some very strange things. Like, for example, there was a bill that wanted to deport women, illegals who persecuted women and minors, and he voted against it. He certainly is. He's voting against the SAVE Act, the idea of having election integrity. I mean, we have to prove that you're a citizen to vote. I mean, to get one of the special driver's licenses, you need to prove that you're a citizen. So if you have a driver's license that's valid that you can use on a plane, then that should be more than enough to be able to vote. So I don't particularly understand any of this. Beating up, Jewish kids, wearing hoods and wearing, masks, sort of like almost like a Islamo-fascist KKK. And Federal President Trump said, "Well, we shouldn't be giving you money if you're not." And when they sued him, when Harvard sued Trump, his line was kudos to Harvard. I mean, what right does the government have to take away money from somebody who's like violating federal law? I mean, that seems kind of odd. And the reality is that Connecticut has been a state that's in deep trouble because it just has the wrong people representing it. That are not advocating for the state. And if you look at the history of where we're headed next, if we don't do something different, this state is going to be in an extremely difficult situation. I mean, let's start with energy. So there's an estimate that there's going to be at least a doubling of demand for energy in the next decade. And President Trump, came up with an idea of the companies having to produce their own energy for the data centers, but I don't know how that's all going to happen. And also, there's other demand issues. So, if you look at one of our biggest sources to generate electricity is natural gas, and we are essentially being starved from getting enough natural gas because federal laws give Governor Hochul the veto power to veto any pipeline that passes through the state of New York. And all three of our pipelines pass through the state of New York. So I would, going to Congress, I would push for legislation that would eliminate the veto power. Mm-hmm. The second way we get natural gas is, at least not necessarily in Connecticut, but in New England, is in Massachusetts, where it comes by tanker. And we have a wonderful law called the Jones Act. And it says that any intrastate commerce, which means we can't get natural gas from the Gulf of Mexico because it has to come on a U.S. tanker to bring it to Massachusetts. And the problem is there are no Jones Act compliant U.S. tankers. So all of that natural gas gets shipped someplace else, and then we have to import it from somewhere else at a higher price. So the federal laws need to be changed so that Connecticut and all of New England can get enough natural gas so there's going to be enough electricity to heat our houses and provide and keep the lights on and run businesses, because there's going to be a shortage and we may have enough. And the second issue is nuclear power. So one of the ideas that my son John came up with, and I fine-tuned it and worked it out, looked at all the data and came up with some answers, was to take the decommission nuclear power plants from nuclear subs and modify them to produce domestic electricity. Now, the interesting things about the nuclear subs is a nuclear sub power plant generates 230 megawatts of electricity. Now, the wonderful windmill project that we have going on that's currently costs $6 billion and probably will cost more will only generate 700 megawatts of electricity, most of it going to Rhode Island. So 3 decommissioned nuclear subs could generate as much electricity as this entire windmill fiasco. And the interesting thing about the nuclear subs is that the power plants have to be safe because people are living right next to these plants on the submarine. So they're designed to be safe, they're designed to be durable, they're designed to withstand temperature, atmosphere, shock, all kinds of stuff. So they're super, super durable. And some of the newer ones are designed to basically be self-contained for 40 years. So if we could take and retrofit those, which we could probably do for probably under $1 billion, we could generate 3 of those could beat the windmills. And it's great for another reason. Then the government doesn't have to pay the disposal cost to dispose of it. And since Connecticut has Electric Boat where they make nuclear subs, they would have a facility that would bring Connecticut jobs to start reconfiguring these things, and they could bring a lot of jobs to Connecticut and stimulate the Connecticut economy and make sure that we have enough nuclear electricity in addition to the natural gas. So that's one of the reasons I'm running. And another reason that really concerns me is our healthcare system. And the fundamental problem with healthcare is it's called too much regulation and too little competition. And those are the answer for making something extremely expensive and inefficient. And that's exactly what happens. And we need to reverse both of those trends if we want to have affordable healthcare. I mean, in many, many hospital settings, there's many times more administrators than there are doctors treating patients. And that doesn't make sense. And certainly in a government-run system. So if we had a national Medicare for all system, which the Democrats are advocating for, the tax rates, because it would go through the roof. I mean, for example, when I was a president of the New York County Medical Society, New York State was looking into doing this, and they had Rand did an analysis of it, and the actual cost would bring tax rates probably, after not that high an income level into the 75% range. And plus in New York, they were adding an 18% payroll tax where the employer paid half and the worker paid half. So in the end, the work people would have like no money because you're adding a $5.5 trillion entitlement program. And if you see the fraud and abuse that goes on in our entitlement programs, you can imagine how much money is going to disappear when it's $5.5 trillion and instead of being used to take care of patients. So that's, you don't reward incompetence by putting all of healthcare in the hands of the government. So I think that's a major mistake. And then, we talk about, affordability of houses. And one of the things that you have to realize is this is not the first time that this has happened. So at the end of World War II, there were millions of soldiers that had come back from the war and were looking for a place to live. And what happened was smart real estate developers took areas that were previously, not where they were either farms or rural areas, and they mass-produced houses almost in an assembly line fashion, which we could do with modular homes today. And they built houses that people could afford. They weren't, the super luxury, but they had bedrooms, they had kitchens, they had bathrooms, they had places to eat, and people were able to begin the American dream, and they would also be able to build equity. I'm a strong believer that people should be owning housing rather than renting. And so one of the things that's also happened is it happened in New York is you had essentially desolate, destroyed urban areas that were redeveloped and regentrified. And certainly I've come up with an idea of I call it the 21st Century Homestead Act, where the government would take possession of these rundown, debilitated, essentially currently worthless properties, and then allow construction of modular homes and modular condos on them so that they could be affordable, and that the people that bought them after a certain amount of time, the title of the land would go to the homeowners, and they would just have to stay there for a certain amount of time, so that you create opportunities so that people can own homes. One of the other ways that you can lower interest rates so that people can afford homes if interest rates don't come down enough is that the state can, which is, through various authorities, can borrow money tax-free, and that money could become part of the pool that would fund mortgages. So you could then also produce more mortgages at lower rates, also to make home ownership affordable. When people own their homes, they become stakeholders. They develop equity. You eliminate a lot of wealth disparity. So these are just these are obvious things that I think can be done, and I think that should be done. And I think that's the stuff that's going on in the Connecticut legislature is the absolute opposite. And certainly it's not a federal issue, but it is. What they're doing is destroying towns and cities, and it's not going to.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
A warm welcome here at the National Press Club. Welcome to the journalists, welcome to the Embraer team, and welcome to the other guests that we have here. We're going to announce, and as some of you guessed it right when they came in, the first E2 order by an American operator. And that operator is Avello. We believe this is really a strategic shift to unlock profitability for the customer. I'm very pleased that we have Andrew Levy here as the CEO of Avello, and I'm very pleased to give the stage to share a little bit more about what Avello is going to do with the E2 195. Thank you very much.
Couldn't be more excited to be here as part of this historic announcement. We have such a great cultural fit as companies, so we're very, very excited to be Embraer's newest customer. We launched our airline in April of 21, and our target is focusing on small secondary airports of large metro areas. We've carried over 8 million customers since we started on 63,000 flights. And we've done all these things with 1,200 of the greatest crew members I could ever imagine having, and many of them are here with me today. This is the right airplane for us. It's going to open up opportunities for us that no other aircraft can serve. The best thing about the airplane, of course, is you will not find a middle seat on this airplane. It doesn't exist. We won't have any to offer. It's going to be the best cabin in the United States, and we're so excited about that. This is going to elevate our experience to the highest level, and we think our customers are absolutely going to love the airplane.
Yeah, and that's an issue we've been focusing on, is the zoning issue, the state control of zoning, which is destroying, as you say, a lot of the Connecticut is going to be forever changed if this continues, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unfortunately, it is, from running for federal office, it's not a federal issue, but it's certainly, as somebody lives in Connecticut, it's certainly something that concerns me. And then there's the whole issue of, we talk as the future of the young, the youth, the people that are in high school and going to be in high school and starting college. And there's two fundamental problems. The first is, universities are much too expensive. Only about 25% of the tuition pays for the professors. And I think one of the things there should be a federal law that requires disclosure. First of all, where does your money go? When you're paying X number of dollars in tuition, where does it go? Where is it being spent? And the second should be a concept of disclosure. So, for example, if you want to major in history or you want to major in philosophy, you should be informed what's happened to the recent graduates with that major, what their grades were, how many what percent got employed, what the salary ranges are, so that you're sitting there and spending several $100,000 to go and major in something where you're not going to get a job. If you can know in advance, you can either pick a different major or decide on something else. But certainly, so a good example is when I went to college and I want to go to medical school, which I did. In front of the pre-med office, they had a list, and they said they named the people who got into medical school and what their grades were. And you knew that if they're the first year, if your grades weren't anywhere near the level that you needed to do it, that you knew that was not a career option. And so I think that people have to know up front what's going to happen and whether or not they're actually going to get any bang for their buck out of their college education. The other problem in Connecticut is we need trade schools and trade programs in high schools and mentorships. We have 100,000 blue collar jobs in things like plumbing and HVAC and machinists and carpenters and all these. And these jobs pay as well as college graduates. And they're going begging, and so it's a double whammy, because number one, people are losing out on jobs, and then we may not even have enough of these people to provide the services that we need in the state. So these are things that really bother me, and these are things that I think need to be need to be taken care of and addressed. And I want to go to Congress because I want to fight for the people of Connecticut, and I want to fight for this country. And I think that this country is really, you know, at a crossroads between the woke, progressive, liberal, failed ideology and what this country was founded on, which are the principles of our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution: a government for the people, by the people, limited government, a government that actually, you know, benefits the people rather than just sucking money out of their pockets and then wasting it.
So do you think you're going to get, well, the Republican Party, I think, in Connecticut is somewhat muzzled or almost controlled opposition kind of thing. What, are you getting the support you need from the party?
I mean, I haven't, you know, I've spoken to people. We've been working a lot. My son Jonathan and I have been working a lot outside of the state of Connecticut. We've been going to DC. We've been talking to a lot of people in DC. We've been in Florida. We've talked to grassroots movements and a whole bunch of other organizations. Because the problem is that in Connecticut, the Republican Party is primarily focused on the state elections, because the state elections are, unfortunately, where the money is.
Yeah.
And huge sums of money flow into these state elections, and as a result, you know, there's a lot of, you know, that's where there's opportunities. That's where people can get paid to be consultants, to be campaign managers. That's where vendors can do business, and that's so that, you know, there's a huge machine. And for example, the person who ultimately becomes the gubernatorial candidate will get almost $20 million. And the people that make it into the primary getting almost $3.5 million. So there's a lot of money. And then you add the state rep CEP program and the state Senate programs, and there's a lot of state money there that can fund a lot of campaigns and that can provide a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunities. So the party doesn't you know, focus on the federal elections, and people, you know, don't necessarily realize that federal elections are what counts. And I mean, they as I said, we talked about energy, we talked about education, we talked about opportunities, we talked about land opportunities. We're going to talk about the border. I mean, look at the chaos that was created by a federal government that opened in a border, a federal government that had appeasements of aggressive sociopathic world leaders. You know, China is essentially our biggest rival, and there are, unfortunately, a lot of similarities between China and Nazi Germany. I mean, they're both totalitarian dictatorships, militarizing, looking for world domination. And the worst thing that I think could happen to the world is another totalitarian dictatorship dominating most of the world. And this is something that really needs to be stopped. And then you have the lunatics in Iran, these religious fanatics who, you know, believe in this concept of jihad, and if people die, well, that's, you know, they're martyrs. I mean, so you don't want people like that having nuclear weapons. And I think that, you know, between the Israelis and President Trump, they've taken major steps, but, you know, once again, there's people helping them retool and rebuild. So these are a lot of the major problems that we face, and these are really a lot of the reasons that I want to run. And I do believe that I will have, you know, the support of the party. And I did. In there's many towns I did well, and in several towns, both I actually got more votes than President Trump did. So I wasn't, you know, a tailwinds candidate, but actually an independent. And, you know, I've been, you know, traveling around the state, and since my last election, and I have really good relationships with a lot of the towns. So I believe that I will get strong support.
Excellent. So how do people help you if they're watching and want to get behind you?
Okay, well, we need in order to win, and this is really what we need to talk about is to win. You need two things: you need manpower and money. So we need volunteers, and we need people to donate. Even if you donate $20 or $10, if a lot of people donate, the money adds up. So my website is www.goldsteinforcongress.com. We also have a Substack that we send out. We'd like more people to subscribe. We have 25,000 subscribers, and my son and I write articles all the time. The most recent one was about the nuclear power plants from the ships, and we write. And so, you know, we're out there, you know, getting the message and trying to educate Connecticut people about the problems that are existing. I mean, it's not a campaign, you know, document. It's really just an informational newsletter that we just write them up. We pick up subjects that we think are interesting, and we write about it, and we try to just get the message out, because there's no real media. So once again, the real problem in Connecticut is simple. you have a Democratic Party that has a lot of money. You have a Democratic Party that controls the media. You have a Democratic Party that's the incumbents. So, and you have a large number of voters who are essentially not aware of what's going on. In other words, many people will know who, let's say, is running for governor, but they may not know who the rest of the people are on, on that same ticket are. They may not know who's running for Congress. They may not know who's running for state senate or for state rep. And if they like the person that's on the top, the gubernatorial candidate, they'll just go straight across. And if that happens, then there's no way that somebody like myself can win. What I need to do is to get the message to independent, unaffiliated voters and talk about the issues. Also, school choice is another major one that's a problem. And talking about how I as a candidate and how I as a congressman want to make their lives better. Like how I can help them solve problems, how I can help them pay less for electricity and make sure they have enough electricity, make sure their children have more opportunities, make sure that housing is more affordable, that healthcare shifts back to a direction of more affordability, easier access to doctors. And by the way, the doctors are all burned out in the system too.
Yeah.
And also prevent some, really, outrageous stuff that's going on in healthcare. And I think that, this is a battle, and this is a battle for America. And if people really understand that their future is affected by who wins, then they'll hopefully get off their butts and participate, share, talk to their friends. If you like what I have to say, tell 10 other people about it, share this video, and just get the message out. That's really what needs to be done.
Doctor, thank you so much. We're out of time. The show's slotted to end here shortly, but thank you, and we'll have you back down the road.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Todd.
You bet. Ciao.